This year is to try to explain what's the real reason why there's an Indian to get shikar on Purim, which we never ever do any other time of the year. Normally, shikrus is not a Yiddish Amida. We usually never do it. So why all of a sudden now are we making that it's a big thing to do on Purim? To understand it better, we have to go to the Arizal, who says that the main hashpah, the main koyach of Purim, is coming from a place that's called Yesod Abba. Yesod Abba is from a place, or another. Sometimes it's also called Chachma. It's a place where it's kulei chesed. There's no din. There's nothing stopping from the tremendous chesed that Hashem rains down on us. And on a regular day of the year, the only way that you can have such a madrega is through many different filters, because it's too high for us to be able to accept such a thing. Therefore, the only way that we can accept such a tremendous shefa, such a tremendous chesed, is normally through filters. However, on Purim, we don't have any such restrictions. On Purim, all the hashpahs come down on a level that is much, much, much higher and greater. Very often, for us to understand what that level is, and we see Chazal talk about it a lot, is something that's called Al Shem Ha'asid. It's the future. We don't know the future. The only one who knows the future is the Rabbeinu Shalom. He knows the future, so therefore, anything that's considered in the future is hidden from us. Obviously, there are things that we can imagine what the future will be like. If tomorrow I'm going to have breakfast or not, that's the future. So certain things in the future we have a little bit access to. But the future, what we're calling La'asad Lava, we have no access to. And there are certain names that Rabbi Shalom uses which represent the future, which we have no access to. For example, the Shem Eke, which is the Shem Al Ha'asid, the Lashon future will be, the Shem we have no access to. The Shem for La'asad Lava. Granted us special day that we have access to take in koiches of a place called Yesod Abba. And that place is what we're going to call not Olam HaSeichel, this is what the Sfarim call it, but Olam HaRuchni. Olam HaRuchni we have no access to. Olam HaSeichel we have a little bit access, dependent on what we can imagine and whatnot. What does drinking, getting high, and Purim have to do with any of this? As you know, there's an Indian of Simcha entire year. Mitzvah liyais b'simcha tamid. And you have also Purim time, you have Sukkot time, you have Zman Simchaseinu. In Purim, Mishnechnas Adar is Marva b'simcha, we spoke about it once before. The Simcha that we typically speak of is, since Simcha is Chamisha, which is a remes to the Chamisha Chomshei Torah. So the only true Simcha is the Simcha of Torah. What is this that we're doing now on Purim? That we're going to be drinking. We're going to, so to speak, go out of our minds. What is that? Seemingly that's a schar, which is what we call an immediate schar. You know, that you didn't drink yayin, and the yayin that we drink on Purim is considered the yayin hamish shumar la'asad lavai, which is set aside for the future, for when the Geula will come. Goyim, generally speaking, drink shechar. Shechar is lashon schar. The whole Goyish life is immediate reward. We don't live for immediate reward. We live for the future. So we don't. I mean, you're allowed to use schnapps to get to where you want to be, but the mitzvah is in yayin. And nichnas yayin yatzasayid is pshat. Not just that when you get drunk you spill your beans, but nichnas yayin yatzasayid. We're talking about the side of la'asad lavai. That we drink the yayin hamishumar, the yayin that's set aside for la'asad lavai. Then the side of la'asad lavai will also be revealed to us. To take it further, one of the main things that we do on Purim is called Hamtakas Hadin, which is a thing we strive for on a regular basis. This is what we daven for on Yom Kippur, and this is since Yom Kippur is a Yom Kippurim. Obviously, Purim is also a major day of Hamtakas Hadin, sweetening of the din. So how are we being Mekayim that? When we go from our world that we understand, which we call Olam HaSeichel, all the way up to Olam HaRuchni, what we're trying to accomplish is become to a pchina of Hamtakas Hadin, because all the way up there is Chesed Elyon, there is no Din Shailet. Therefore, we could, like it says, Chayiv Inish Levasume. What is Levasume? Miloshin Baisem, Miloshin smelling good, Miloshin Hamtakas Hadin. And why is it Loshin Baisem? As you know, by Chet Adam Harishan, the only Aver that was not Nifkam in that Chet was the nose, the sense Chush Hareach was not Nifkam in the Chet Adam Harishan. That's why Levasume, to make it smell good, which means Hamtakas Hadin. So Chayiv Inish Levasume, Adalo Yada, that you are leaving Olam HaSeichel, you're leaving the world of knowledge, and you're going to Olam HaRuchni, and in that place is a place of Adalo Yada, you don't know, Bein Ar Haman LeBaruch Mordechai. Why? Because they're going to have such a Hamtakas Hadin that the Ar Haman will be on the same level of Baruch Mordechai. That's the pshat why we drink, that we should reach the Madrega of Chesed Elyon, the Madrega of getting to such a high place where we could be mamtik the din, we could sweeten all the dinim on us. Everybody has their own tzaras, everybody has their own dinim. So Purim is a time of kol haposhid yad nice and light. You stick out your hand, you make all your bakashas. The Rebbeinu Shalom answers every bakasha. Why? Because we're now not in Olam HaSeichel, we're in Olam HaRuchni, and in Ruchni we're able to accept this great Chesed Elyon. Just the reason, just to answer the first question, that is the real reason why the Indian of to get high. High doesn't mean drunk like a shikara, but high means to get to high madrega in kedusha. If we should get to such a high madrega in kedusha and in ruchni is, if we should be able to sweeten all the dinim and say, Rebbeinu Shalom, I want to be a eved, I want to attach myself to you, I want to make a yichud, I want to help be the one to make the yichud between Klal Yisrael and the Rebbeinu Shalom, in order that he should take away from us all the magafas and all the things that are here to punish us. And all this comes from where? Avos Hashem, Avos HaTorah. I need to say over a story which can emphasize to us a little bit what does it mean, Avos HaTorah, being Ma'aseh Nefesh for Torah, and giving ourselves up for the Rebbeinu Shalom. And I'm saying over the story, I saw it in the Sefer, it says there that Rabbi Issa Zalman Meltzer said over by every single Purim Suda, this story. The story goes as follows. In Shnas Tach V'Tat, that was, say, about 350 years ago, a little more, 370 years ago, there was, from the biggest Mekubalim, his name was Reb Shamshon Asrapolia. He wasn't Hasidish, it was before the Baal Shem Tov, saying that if for everybody, however they look at things. Rav Shimshon Asrupalya was a Kaddish Elikim. It was Mamash a Kaddish V'tar. It was from the biggest Mikubalim in his time, in any time. Unfortunately, most of the Sfarim that he wrote were destroyed by the Kazakhs, and at that time they had terrible Gzeres on Yidden. They did not let Yidden live, and they were coming and killing out hundreds and thousands of Yidden. Rav Shimshon Asrupalya B'Koiche HaGadol, he was able to summon Malach HaMavos, the Samach Mem, and say, why are you punishing Klal Yisrael so much? What can we do to stop all these terrible Gezeres on us? And he told him that Klal Yisrael is not keeping shtark with 3 mitzvahs. One is Shabbos, one is Milah, and one is Torah. And in order to be B'chapa on this Gezerah, we will need the Misa, the Mesiras Nefesh of 3 tzaddikim. And when these 3 tzaddikim will give up their lives to save Klal Yisrael, all the Gezeres will stop. Rav Shimshon Asrupalya said, Hareini Muchan U'Mezumin, I'm ready to give up my life in order to save Klal Yisrael. And then he went to another gadol in that time. His name was Rabbi Chiel Michal Nimrov. At the time, he was known as the biggest from the Gedolei Hadar, Nukal Kula. And Rav Shimshon Asrupalya asked him if he would be willing to give up his life. And he said, yes, he would. So he knew that Shabbos and Milah were now covered, so the Gezerah would be certainly lessened. Then he went to the Shach, who at the time was a young man who was about 27 years old. And he asked him if he'd be willing to give up his life for Torah. And the Shach said no, he wouldn't. Rav Shimshon Asrupalya asked him, why not? Shach told him that I'm in the middle of writing my Pirush Sifsei Kayin and Yeredeya, and my Pirush is going to be a Pirush that's going to be part of the sustenance of Klal Yisrael for many generations, and therefore I cannot give up my life. In other words, not I can't give up my life for Torah, but I have to live my life for the sake of Torah so I could write this Pirush. Shimshon Asrupalya was very upset with him, and he wrote in his tzavah after that none of his children or grandchildren should marry a kohen, the chash that maybe they'll marry from the offspring of the shach who was not willing to be Moshe Nafshaya for Torah. The end of the story is that the shach lived another 15 years. He had tzaras, well-known stories, tzaras that he went through, b'chayav. After 15 years, when he finished his pirush, he was nifta. So he was not Moshe Nefesh for Torah, but his time wasn't ready because the Torah that he had to bring down from Shemayim wasn't complete yet. To understand why the Rebbe Zalman Meltzer say over this story, it's a depressing story to say it over on Purim. I'm thinking that first of all, the Ikka thing of Purim is that we make what we call Amtakas Hadin. We have to sweeten the din. If the Akzeir sent Klal Yisrael, Purim is the day to be able to do it. Sometimes it requires Mesiras Nefesh. So we have to be willing to be Moshe Nefesh for Torah, for Shabbos, for Milah, for all the things that are holy to us. And although Purim seems like just a happy day and you're partying around and everything else, but Purim is a very serious day. It's a Yom Tefillah, has to be Mitech Simcha, it has to be Mitech Tveikus and Hashem, and it has to be that we should reach the highest level that we possibly can reach. And on that we could say, La Yehudim Haisa Eira, Simcha, V'Sasan.